Hi, welcome to Scholarhat YouTube channel. Today I'm very excited to start a course on Angular. Angular for beginners. If you are a beginner and willing to learn the Angular end to end, because Angular is the most popular JavaScript framework, the people are using for building the web application, for building the mobile application, and for building the desktop application as well. So Angular can be used everywhere. It does not mean whether you are dealing the website, whether you're dealing with mobile app, whether you're dealing with the desktop. Everywhere Angular can help you to build the application. So in this course, I'm going to teach you the Angular end to end. We will start from Angular building blocks where you will learn how to create the Angular project, what are the Angular folder structure we having, what are the various Angular building blocks we have like data binding, we having the directive, we having the pipes, we having the services, we having the forms, and further learn how to integrate them together to do the things. If you are come to the channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to Scholarhat YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that the information about such valuable courses you will get notified automatically. So let's get started with the course. So when it is coming to the Angular, so Angular is a open source framework which is helping us to build a single page application using the web technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And here Angular is written in the TypeScript and follows the TypeScript syntax to write the code. So it is empowering the developers to build the applications for browsers, mobiles, and desktop. So Angular is not limited to build only website. Angular can be used to build the mobile application. The Angular can be used to build the desktop application as well. Angular version history. If you're looking at so far how many version of Angular has been released, so the Angular 1 was released in 2012. And the initial version of Angular we use with JavaScript to write the code. And starting from Angular 2, they adopted the TypeScript syntax. So now starting from Angular 2, we having the TypeScript as a programming language to write the Angular code. And if you're looking at what is the last release, let's say latest release of the Angular right now, it is Angular 14. So Angular 14 was released in June 2022. And on every 6 months, you will have a new version of Angular. So Angular team is releasing a new version of Angular on a difference of 6 months. So somewhere around in November, you will have Angular 15. Again, next year in May and June, you will get Angular 16 as well. So this is the way how the Angular version are going to be released. But if you're looking at starting from Angular 2 and Angular 14, fundamental things are same. Only some syntax differences, only some feature differences you will find out over there. You will not find out much changes fundamental level at the fundamentally. Obviously, with each release, they're going to make the framework more stable. Performance also they're improving. They're also adopting the latest set of features so that you always sync with the ES version, because we having the ES7, ES8, like this version are going to be released. And even the TypeScript also going to be evolved. So they are keeping the things with the TypeScript version release. To get started with Angular, we need the Angular CLI. So Angular CLI is a powerful tool to create, build, and serving the Angular 2+ application. With the help of Angular CLI, we can generate the component, root, services, and pipes. And to install the Angular CLI, you have to run this command npm install -g @angular/CLI. Then we can create the Angular project. Then we come inside the Angular project. Then we can install all the necessary node packages. Then you have to run the ng-serve command. So with the help of ng-serve command, we can run our application. So this is the way how the Angular CLI is coming into the picture. So if you're looking at what are the advantage of Angular CLI, So Angular CLI advantages are it follow the Angular best practices. So we don't need to worry about to set up to configure the Angular project. Angular CLI is doing the things for us. Even we can configure the style guides like CSS, SAS, and others as well. Behind the scene, it use the Webpack, a dev server to start our Angular application. Even it also handle the environment specific setting wisely. It is having the things for build management, testing we can do using Karma Protector. So many things are managed by the Angular CLI. So we don't need to configure the things over there. So these are the Angular CLI option you will get to get the help to build the code, to run the application, to test the application, and for end-to-end testing. So these are the Angular CLI various commands you can use to create different building blocks in our application. So here we can generate the module by running this command ng generate module, then module name. Same way we having component, directive, pipe, service, guard, class, interface, enum. So these options are there for doing the things. So here either you can use the things here. So here we can use the short name. This is the short name is available for generate the things. So here we are using M for component, sorry, M for module, C for component, D for directive, P for pipe, S for service, G for card, CL for class, I for interface, and E for enum. So these options are available to create the specific things in Angular. So let's see how we can create the Angular project first. Then we talk about how we can create these many things in our Angular application. So as I said here, to set up the Angular application, you need to first check the installation of Angular CLI. So here at the command prompt label, let me do mention the things here. So here you have to just mention here Angular CLI, you have to install npm i-g @angular/CLI. So this command you have to run. So now here you have to create the Angular application. The application you can create where I can create over here. Let's say code weekend this way. So here at this location I can create the Angular application. So I'm going to go to this location here this way. And then here run the command ng. So ng new, then application name. So application name is, let's say, my app. Then 21 August is my project name I'm using. ng new my app 21 August. So do we create an Angular project with this name? Now it is asking, do you want to configure routing? Yes. Configure the routing. What you are willing to use, CSS or CSS. So CSS I'm using. So it's created the project. Now it is downloading all the necessary things. So it has been done. Now we can open it. Open in VS Code. In the VS Code, I can open the same folder here. So we having my app 21st August this way. So this Angular application has been generated. Now let's understand here Angular application folder structure first. So if you're looking at here, we having here tsconfig.json file. So this JSON file we having here for TypeScript configuration. Here they mention the compiler option, because ultimately, if you remember yesterday, what are the code we were writing to TypeScript? It was compiled into the plain JS. But how that code will be compiled, that will be decided using this compiler option. So using this compiler option, we will compile our TypeScript code into the plain JS. So that is a setting for the TypeScript compiler. Then we having the setting for the tsconfig app, because here this is a global setting, this is the app specific setting. So this is my app folder. So inside this app folder, which setting you're going to apply. So this setting is going to apply it through this tsconfig app.json. Then we having a setting for the specification, means whatever the test file we having, those test file having the extension .spec.ts. So for test file, these setting is going to apply for the compilation. So here you can see it is going to include the test file and the polyfill files. So only spec file it is going to include inside this app folder. Then we having a file for package.json. So what are the various Angular packages we are using in our application? So that information is available here. So we having here two types of dependencies. We having the production dependencies, that is a part of the dependency section, and we having the dev dependency. So that dependency we needed only to build the application, and the production dependency we needed to build the project, to build the application. So for production dependency, these packages should be the part of the build. So here you can see we having these common packages, animation, common, compiler. So these packages we are using, and this is Angular version we are using. 14.1 is the release of the Angular we are using right now. Then these are the scripts are available to build our Angular project, to start our Angular project. And here we can use the watch command as well if you're looking for the watch here. So these many commands we can run for doing the things here. And then we have in here package log JSON file. For the package log JSON file, it is containing those packages which are containing a specific version. So today we are going to set up the application with Angular 14.1 release, but after some months you will have Angular 15 as well, or Angular another package, another version, it's Angular 14.2, 14.3. So what are the version we are using today? If we are going to set up the same package after a few months or after year, so exactly same package it will set up, because what are the code we be write by following the Angular 14 syntax is Angular 14 releases. So exactly same thing we want to do with the later on as well, if you are going to setting up the same project from scratch. So that's why this package log file is important there. Then we having a karma file. So we having a karma as a test runner here for running the test cases. So when you write the code for Angular application and those test cases, for running those test cases, we need the karma here. Then we having a angular.json file that contain the setting which used by the Angular CLI. So here we can see we having a index file setup. So here we are building the single page application. So we will have a one single page that is index.html, which is going to responsible here for load all the necessary dependency simply. So this is the single file which is containing this app root, because here we need a one component to set up the things. So this one component is going to define to set up the Angular application over there. So this settings mentioned, this is the index file, this is the main file which is going to set up the things over there. Then we have been here the polyfill. So polyfill here for running the code in the older browser. So for backward compatibility, we having the polyfills. This is for tsconfig. In the tsconfig, we having the things about the TypeScript configuration. So from where we are going to pick up, we are going to pick up from this tsconfig.js file. So these many things are available here, and actually we are using to do the things here. Then we have in the setting to serve the set like a static file. If you're willing to add the scripts, so scripts we can add here like jQuery script, bootstrap, JS. So these things we can add over here for doing the things simply. Then we having a git ignore. So in git ignore, if let's say you're going to deploy the code to the GitHub, to the Git based repository, so here we can mention those folders, those files which we don't want to commit. Obviously node modules folder we never commit, so that directory we added. Even we don't commit the folder .vs code .launch file .settings files. So this is the things here we are including simply. We did it. Then we having here the file for the test.ts. So this file contain the all the settings to set up the environment for the testing for running the test cases. This is my global dose style sheet where we can define the global CSS to apply all the application. And this global style.css we are calling here. Can you see over here? Polyfills already told you here. For the older browser support, we can add in this polyfills. And main.ts file is similar to the we having public static void main method to start the application. So here in the main.ts, we having this bootstrap module method. So in this module method, we pass that module which we use to initialize it. So we are initializing the module by calling this bootstrap module method. So app module is here acting as a root module. And in this root module, we are adding the things. So this is my app module. It's a root module. So this root module contains the information about the Angular application. And to understand the flow, you have to look at this picture. So everything start from the index.js. So first we having index.html, and at index.html we access the app-root. Then we having a main.ts file. Inside the main.ts file, we add the root module. So which one is root module? Root module is this one. So this root module having information about other modules and components, directives and pipes which we are using in our application. So these component, directive and pipes we will use on a view, like on a HTML file. Now this view can be a child view for a master view. And this master view is going to be rendered with the help of this app root. So what is happening in this code? Right now we having this app component. This is my app component.ts. So this one we will use as a master view. So right now we don't have any child view. So this master view only we will serve. And here you can see everything is a class here in Angular. So how the Angular is going to identify which one is class, which one is component and which one is module. So for this one, Angular use the decorators. So we having here at the red component decorators here. This decorator is telling to Angular it is a component. And decorators are similar to the attributes we have in C# and Java language. Similar way you can see the app module label, we having a ng module decorator, which is telling to the Angular it is a module class, not a component class. And each decorator having is object, a JavaScript object, where we having the things to define. So here it is containing the declaration property, it is having the imports property, it's having the providers, it's having the bootstrap, which Angular already know internally how the things are working. So this is about the decorators we are having here. Then here you can see we having a app routing module. So right now we don't have any routes defined over there because we have not added any pages to be done. So routes of the application we will define over here. So we will add the routes as well. And in the component, each component will have 4 files. If you're looking at here, each component having the 4 file. We having a separate file for the CSS. We having a separate file for HTML to render for that component. We having a testing file for running the test cases. And we having a code behind file. So these 4 files are going to point same component here. So whenever you are creating the component, we having the things like this way. But if you're not having a separate CSS file, you can delete this one. And this entry we can remove from here. And if you're not writing any test cases, you can remove this test file as well. So mainly here we having the 2 important files, TS and the HTML. Other 2 files are optional. If you need it, create them, otherwise don't create them. So what I'm doing here to make it simplify, let's say I'm deleting this spec file here. I'm deleting this CSS file. So now we having only two files. Now let me remove the CSS reference. Let me remove the title from here also. And here in the HTML, we having a many code to written. I'm just changing it. Let me start with my own simple text. Hello Angular. Simple text I'm adding here on this HTML page. Hello Angular. This way. So this is the component here. This is the root module and this is the routing module. I hope it is clear about the app folder now. What are the various files here? And from where they are going to initialize, they're going to initialize from this main.ts. So in the main.ts, we are importing the app module, and this app module I'm passing. And inside this app module, I'm importing the component, I'm importing the other third-party module over there. Simply. Now we can run the application here by running the command ng serve command. No, that is going to start my Angular application. And whenever you are using the ng serve command, you can mention the -o option so that we can open here default browser automatically. ng serve -o, you have to mention to open the default browser here. So we'll see I'm getting the output here, hello Angular, like this way. So now here, this is the app component HTML where we have done the code. This is the TS file. This app component, if you're looking at, we have defined, we have declared in the declaration section. Then I'm adding to Bootstrap. So anything whichever you are going to access on the index.html, it is necessary to mention to Bootstrap. So here I'm mentioning to Bootstrap, so that's why I'm able to use it here. So any component which you want to access directly on this index.html, you have to make it as a part of this Bootstrap section. If you will not make it as a part of Bootstrap, I'm not able to access to the index.html. So now here we have to design, we have to create the other pages as well. Let's say home page, about us, and the others one. So what I can do here, I can add here the other component. So now let me add here a component. So here by clicking on this plus icon, I'm adding a command prompt. And always remember one thing, whenever you adding the command prompt, it's not a PowerShell. Because by default in the Windows machine, you will get here PS. So PS for PowerShell. So always remember here, whenever you're selecting here this command prompt, not the PowerShell option. Because in case of PowerShell, these commands will not run. So here you will have by default the things like this way. PS. If PS is coming, it is PowerShell. So this PowerShell and to change to the command prompt like this way. And from here delete. So any extra command prompt if you having, please kill it from here by clicking on this kill icon this way. So now here I can create a component. So I just said we can create a component by using these commands. And gc, then component name. So here I'm adding simply ng space gc for component. And component name is here, let's say data binding. I'm adding. And when you will create a component, as I said, by default, you will have 4 files: TS, HTML, spec, and CSS. But spec and CSS, I don't want to generate. So I'm just mentioning here option inline dash style. This one I'm mentioning. Then we having skip dash test. So now skip the test cases here. Enter it. So we created the data binding folder, which is containing data binding component.html and component.ts this way. So 2 things are here. I'm having this component template URL. This way it is coming. So here I can add a heading h2 for data binding. And to access the data binding, we can access it on app component.html. So here I can call it as a HTML element. So as we having the element in HTML div paragraph, similar way we can call any component on HTML page. So now if you will see, I'm getting a data binding heading like this way. Similar way we can keep adding the things. So now this app component.html is working as a master view. Even in the picture also shown there is a master view. So this master view we are rendering through the app dash root here. So using the app dash root, it is working. It is going to be done the things over there. So do one thing, let me add here a index.html. So here you will have index.html first. So from here the things are going to start like this way. So now on index.html everything is going to be initialized simply. So this app component I'm accessing to the index.html, and from here we are accessing it over there. Let's move to the next topic, that is about here. Now let me first explain the more things about here. So when it is coming to working with Angular application, so in Angular application, these are the building blocks we have, like modules, component, templates, metadata, data binding, directives, pipes, routing, form, services, hooks, dependency injection. So these many things we having there. So when it is coming to module, so module and application helping us to organize the application various blocks. So here a module is a simple class which we decorate with ng module decorator. That module contains the information about other components, directives, services and pipes. So these many things that module contains. And these are the built-in module example we have in Angular: Angular core, Angular router, Angular forms, Angular HTTP, Angular common. So these are the built-in one. So anything which is starting from @Angular as a prefix, these are the built-in one. Others can be user defined and third party. Now the second thing, we having a component. So when it is coming to HTML, so HTML does not have the option to create your own custom element. We don't any option to have the if statement, loops and conditional statement. So with the help of Angular, actually we can extend the capability of Angular by introducing the new HTML tag. So component is there. So with the help of component, we can create our own custom tag, and this section of the page we can render using that component. And if you look at a component closely, a component contains a template. Template means HTML markup class where we write the presentation logic to handle the button click and any other activity at the TS file. Metadata. So metadata is a decorator object that contain the information about how to render that component class. So if we're looking at here, this is my metadata where we're defining how to select this element, which HTML we have to render. So this is the metadata here. It's coming. So this is about the component we are having. Say component look like this way. If you don't have a separate HTML file, we can keep everything at the TS file level. So here we having the option either use template, either use template URL. So here we having the template where markup we have written here itself, where we are using backticks, because backtick is helping us to split or let's say break down the statement into the multi-line without putting any plus operator over there. So whatever the class member I'm creating, this class member I can bind here like this by using the data binding syntax. Same way we having the name here as a data binding syntax over there. So this is the example of component where we having the template, we having the code behind, we having the selectors. So these many things are coming into this picture. And whenever you are building a page you can think about a collection of many components like this way. So a page will contain the header component, footer component, the article component, the comments component, category component, news feeds component, and everything we are wrapping in the root label component over there. So ultimately, a page can be designed with the help of many components like this way. So depending upon your requirement, you can have 2 components, 3 components, or 4 components to build a complete web page over there. There's a template about, so template is nothing, it's HTML markup where we are binding the data from the component class and showing it to the user. This is about the decorator. So decorator we apply at the class label and the field label, and decorator having a metadata object which tell to the Angular how to process that class. These are the many types of decorators are available. So we having the 2 types of decorator, class decorator, which we apply at the class label like ng module, component, directive, injectable, and pipe. So these are the example of class decorator. Then we having the class field decorator, which we apply at the field label, input, output. So these we apply at the field label there. Then we having the metadata. So here at the component class label, we decorate them. So this is my selector, this is view, and this is the binding. Here, there is a component decorators over there. So this is the way how the metadata is going to be done, is going to be happen over there simply. And here we are building the single page application. Already these are the example of single page application. So in single page application, routing is happening in the client side. Okay, nothing is coming from the server side. If you need to populate the data on a page, so behind the scene we use the REST API. So we need to create here also REST API to fetch the data from the server. So this is a folded stack. This is the way how we will find out the multi-page application, a single page application. In multi-page application, the entire processing happening on server side, and finally in the client, we rendering the HTML. That HTML going to render it as a DOM there. In single page application, we having the logic at the API level. We having the logic at the application level as well. So here we having the JavaScript based classes, object, and DOM. And not only HTML we are rendering, we have to communicate through the REST API here using the JSON. So you can think about this is the application you're building using the ASP.NET Core MVC or Java Spring. And here this one we are creating the front end using Angular and React, and back end using the API. Make sense? So I hope that things are now much clear by going through this one. So first topic we having a data binding. So data binding actually helping us to bind the data values. So we having the 4 types of data binding: interpolation, we having the property binding, we having the two-way binding, we having the event binding. So these many types of binding are available here. And these are the syntaxes. For interpolation, we use double curly braces in syntax. For property binding, what are the already HTML element we have? So that element property we are wrapping in the square bracket. So square bracket we use for the property binding. For event binding, we use parenthesis. We wrap the event name in the parenthesis. For two-way data binding, we use square bracket and we use parenthesis like this way. This is for two-way data binding we have. So this way we have to use the various syntax to do the things. So data binding component I already added. Now I'm just going to show you these syntaxes there. So for data binding, what I'm doing here, I'm just let me break down the things into 2 parts. So this is my TS file. So I'm defining here name as a string. So this name I can initialize here. Similar way I can define here the company then data type. So here, starting from Angular 13, it is necessary to initialize the value of a class member here. If you have declared it, either initialize the value in the constructor. If you're not willing to initialize, then define the undefined like this way. But here I'm going to initialize the value at the constructor label, so that undefined for the company, I don't need to mention here. But if you're not initializing, it is necessary to define undefined like this way. So this way we set up the things here now. So now let me bind the things. So first we have here interpolation. So for interpolation, let's say I can bind the value here. So I can bind the value, let's say name, then we having the name accessor. In interpolation, I can bind the value to a text box as well. So I can add a input type text. Then we having the value. So in interpolation, we can bind the value like this way, name. So let me use a company itself. Then we having a property binding. So for property binding, we having the syntax property binding here. In property binding, same input, I can use here input type text. So value is a field we need to wrap into the square bracket. This way I'm binding property binding. And in property binding, we can add a anchor tag as well, where I'm using href. So here I'm using, let's say, site as a string. Define the name of the site as https www.scholarhat.com. So here I can mention the site. So site is, let's say, Scholarhat. This I can mention. So this is for property binding. H4. We having here event binding. Event binding. For event binding, I can mention here, let's say, a button. For button, I can mention the click. So let's say it is a greet. Click. For greet, I can mention here, let's say, greet. This way. In greet, I can mention the alert. And here I'm using backticks hi. And do mention the name. So name field we already having here. I can mention that value. This is a event binding. And if I want to use a two-way data binding, for two-way data binding, we have to enable the support for two-way data binding. So open here, first of all, root module. So root module is here, app module. And the root module, I have to add a module reference first. So we having the forms module. And forms module is a part of this one, Angular/forms. Now we can use two-way data binding. So now here, open the data binding component.html, and I can add the things for two-way data binding. For two-way data binding, I'm adding a text box input type text. Then I'm using here ng model. For two-way data binding, I'm adding it for name this way. So this is the name, and this is the way we did two-way data binding. If we will open it now, these things will come over there. Let's say I'm changing the name Mohan Kumar. I'm changing the name here, let's say Mohan Chauhan. If I will click, I'm getting only hi Mohan. But it is a one-way data binding. In one-way data binding, it's never update the value to the component class. But in two-way data binding, if I will update it, so you can see it's updated everywhere. Click, you will get the updated value. This is two-way data binding, this is a event binding, this is a property, this is interpolation. So these are different binding syntax you should know whenever you are dealing with the Angular. Next, we having the directive. So as I said, in HTML, we don't have the conditional statement, we don't have the loops. So if we want to set up those things, so how we can set up? We can set up here using the directives. So component in itself is a directive with a template. Only component is a directive which is having a template here. Others directive does not have a template. So thus we having the structure directive like if, for, switch are the example of structure directive, which are used for adding, removing, and replacing the elements in the DOM. Attribute directive, which are used to alter the appearance and behavior of an existing element. So ng model, ng style, ng class are the example of attribute directive I can use. Even we can create our own custom directive as well. So these are the many example. These are different types of directive we having in Angular. So let's see how we can use these directives. So data binding, I'm just closing now. Let me add one more component for the directive example. So I'm adding here dir as a directive where we having inline style and skip the test case. So we added the directive. Now here at the app component, I'm just going to comment the previous one. Now I'm using app dash dir only. Now open the directive here. Open the component also. So here this is my directive. Add heading for directive. So now for the directive, we having the many simple things to do the same things over there. So for the directive which I can do here, I can use here, let's say a variable number. And this number I can initialize. Let's say num equal to 2. I can use here. Now let me define here an array for colors. So I'm using the array for colors here. Now colors I can initialize. So let me define here one more thing. I'm using here color only as string undefined. So this colors I can initialize now here. Let's say red, blue, and yellow. And default value I can mention for color as empty. This way. So now let's say how we can use here ng if. So we having h4 ng if. So for using the ng if, let's say I'm using here a text box first, input type number and ng model. That is num. Then I can check whether it's even or odd. So I can check here if num not equal to undefined and num modulus 2 equal to 0. It is for even number. Then we can have for odd number here. Where I'm checking it's greater than 0. So it is odd number. I can use for if else as well. So ng if else. For if else we need to have template. Ng dash template is the option. I can define the template ID. So let's say it is a template for if, and it is, let's say, even number. I can define the template for, let's say, else, odd number. And here I can add a condition now. And if else, where I'm using num not equal to undefined and num modulus 2 equal to 0. Then it is template if else. It is template else. Template else. This way. This way I can mention the things. So you can see this is 2, even is coming, odd is coming. Clear? So this is the way how the things are working for even and odd. So this is for if else. If you want to check, it's working fine. Now we can check for the loop here. So for the loop, I'm just writing here AH4. So we having here NG4 as a loop. For NG4, I can bind a drop down. So this is we having for select. Then this is for value. So value we can mention as empty. Then we are using here ng4. For ng4 I'm using here colors. For colors we are using value, that is item. Here also I'm using here item. This is the way we can bind the value from drop down list. And what are the value you are selecting? If let's say you are willing to show, I can show here selected color. It would be here this dot color. Note this, it would be here only color. And this color we need to bind as a 2-bit data binding, a dash ng model and color. So here we having this color. So this color I'm setting to the empty, so that by default it will select this empty option. Exactly same color I'm showing. So whenever you will change the value of this drop down, this value will be selected over there. And here I can add a style as well if willing to set the style. So we having the ng style here. So for ng style, I can define the color for the style also. So I can define here, let's say it would be here color and the selected value for color. So this way I can mention the ng style. So ng style will come as an attribute in this way. ng style. Similar way, if I'm willing to define a CSS class, so I can define a CSS class using the backticks. So CSS class, let's say for red, I'm defining a CSS class. So color is here, let's say red. So red is my CSS class. So similar to the style, I can add for a class as well. ng class. And here I can mention the class. So which class I'm going to apply? I'm going to apply here, let's say red dash class. It is for understanding purpose. I'm just changing the name. If color equal to red, then apply this class. So here I added the condition. I've selected a value for color is red, then apply the red class, otherwise don't apply. So you can see selected color red. It should not be single code, it should be simple here. Now it is coming fine. Okay. In CSS, we never mention the single quote. It work as it is. So this is the way how the things are working here. The things are coming. So this is about directive in Angular. Similarly, if you are willing to create your own custom directive, that is possible to create your own custom directive. So in that case, I can create a directive class and we can define selector like this way. So let me show the example. If you're willing to create your own custom directive, how it can be created. So I'm just creating here ngd for directive and directive name. Let's say highlight. Then skip the test. Because directive does not create a HTML file, but it will create a spec file. So that is spec file I don't want to create. So I'm mentioning here skip test ngd highlight this way. So now I added a highlight directive, and this directive I can use as an attribute. This is a syntax for attribute. If you want to use as a CSS class, I can call as a CSS class like this way. Dot is option there. And now here I can inject a element, that is element ref. Now here I can define, so here I can define the decorator. So I can use it the host listener. So we have been host listener this way. So host listener, I'm using here mouse over. This way it is fn. This is the function I'm adding here. Then using this element, this dot element, native element, then style dot background color. I can mention here yellow. Similar way I will mention for mouse leaf. Mouse leaf f2. So for mouse leaf it would be empty. Simply this way I'm using yellow and empty. So on mouse over, on mouse leaf, we are doing the things. So to call it, I have to mention there as an attribute as a CSS class. So I'm adding as a CSS class this way. Now if you will check, you can see it is mouse over coming this way. Clear? So this way custom directive you can create and you can manipulate whatever you're willing to manipulate. Clear? Similar way, you can capture the click event as well. If you're capturing the for click, on click, you can get the value also. If you're looking for click, so we having the click. So for click, it can be here alert, element dot inner HTML. This way. Reload, click. So can you see I'm getting ngif, I'm getting directive. Clear? It's a complete JS. It's a plain JS code we are writing for this purpose. So this is the way how we can create the directive custom one. The next thing we have been the pipe. So far we have done the HTML element manipulation. Now the thing is, sometime we show the data in a list in a tabular format or in and on a simple page as well. But before displaying the data, the text actually, I want to do some manipulation before displaying the text. So that manipulation can be done here with the help of pipe. So we having the many built-in pipe where I can convert the text into lowercase, uppercase, date, currency, JSON, decimal. So these many pipes can be used to manipulate the text which are displaying to the user. Even we can create a custom pipe as well as per our requirement. This is an example over there. So now let me do one thing. I'm adding here a one more component for example purpose here. It is a component. So component name I'm adding here, let's say pipe. Name can be anything, but what are the sample I'm doing with that name, I'm giving the component name here. So pipe is my component name. Note it is a way to create the pipe. No. So now here at the pipe component, let me add few things to display. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to have a list of employees here. So here I'm creating here a list of employees like this way. Default value is let's say undefined. And this list of employees, I'm going to initialize like this way. So we having the list of employees like this way. Simply. So now this list of employee I want to show at the UI page like here. So we having here pipe. So that data I want to show simply as a JSON format. So I can show in a JSON format like this way. Employees. And I can use JSON pipe. By default, if you will mention only employees, it will not show any data. But after using the JSON pipe, it will show. And then I can use here a table, a bs5 dash table. And table label, I can do the things over there. So table label, let's say we having name, address, contact, salary, joining. So I'm having name, address, contact, salary, joining. So here now I can use the things. So I'm using here employees. Then here I can mention the things item dot name. Then I can mention here address, contact. So one by one we can mention the things. Salary, joining. So it will simply show the thing. So for accessing it, I can import it here. So I'm importing app des pipe this way. App des pipe. So you can see we having the data in JSON format. We having capital. These are default things are coming. I have not applied any pipe to this table, but before that we added the pipe. So now let me add here pipe. So I can add a pipe for, let's say, uppercase. Address for, let's say, lower case. Salary, I can mention here, let's say, currency. So by default currency is here USD. I'm using here INR. Then we having the date. For date, I'm using here DD, MM, Y. This is for date. If we will check now, we will see the things. Capital, small, salary with currency, and joining date DD, MM, YY. So this is the way how things are coming here. So simply we having name, address, contact, salary, and joining. Now if you're willing to create your own custom pipe, so that also you can create. So for this one, I need to add a command ngp p for pipe. So pipe name is here, let's say reverse. Skip the test. I'm creating a pipe with the name of reverse here. So we having the reverse pipe. So whatever the things you will pass here, other things I need to manipulate. So return not null. Here let me define the result equal to empty, and it will return the result here. And here let me use a for loop where I'm using the value, and here I will write the logic to reverse the character value plus result. I'm mentioning simply like this way. So now for reverse I will mention. So this is my reverse. So I'm going to reverse address. This is my reverse. You can say Noida, Delhi, Noida. It is going to reverse the things over there. So this way you can create your own pipe and you can write your custom logic to manipulate the text. Clear how it is working? Okay, so next thing we having about here routing. Because what are the things we are doing right now here? We just calling to the master view. We are not managing them properly. So to manage them properly, we having a routing. So in Angular, routing is happening at the browser level on the client side. And we need to set up the routing like this way. We define a list of route to the routes array. We already added the app routing module. In the app routing module, this route of array we add. Then we having a router outlet, that is a container based upon the requested route. It will render the content. So this one we need to add to the master view. And for navigation purpose, for linking them, we use router link here. So these are the three things we use to set up the routing in our application. So let's see. So routing module, we already having, open it. Define a path for home page. I'm using component. So as a component, I'm using here data binding. Then next, we having for directive, then we having for pipe. So this is for dir. dir. This is for pipe. This is pipe. So we added here three things. directive and pipe. Sometimes it happens the path is not available, so we can add a node found. So I can add a component for node found here. So we are adding for node found. So this is node found. And then I'm using here path asterisk. There I will mention the redirect to. So redirect to node found here this way. This is for node found we having. Now second thing is we have to define at the master view a router outlet. So we having the router outlet this way. Before that we need to define a menu. So using the bootstrap 5 I can generate the things for menu. Bootstrap navbar with minimal UL. So this way I can generate this way. And in place of href, it would be the router link. Router link. So now let me define for home page. It is for data binding. Then we having for dir directive. Then we having for pipe this way. And everything should be aligned to the center of the screen. So in bootstrap we having a class container to put everything into the center. And bootstrap we have not added so far, so we will not get the things over there. Oh, there is a spelling mistake for outlet. Now it is coming. Can you see directive pipe? But proper menu I'm not getting. The reason behind it, we have not added the bootstrap so far. So now let me install a package for bootstrap. Bootstrap package I'm going to install and adding here as a production dependency using the data shape. Enter it. So now after downloading the bootstrap, we have to add the entry into the angular.json. So here I add a path for bootstrap node underscore modules. Then we having the bootstrap distribution css bootstrap.css. This way we can mention here. And after adding the changes into the angular.json, you have to always restart the server. Otherwise that change will not work. So I did ng serve o again. So you can see proper UI you are getting now because of bootstrap. Am I right? Routing is also working. And if let's say you are requesting a page which is not available, you will get not found. Working fine here. So this is the way we can configure the routing. We can do the setup over here. Okay, let's proceed further. So when it is coming to understanding the components, so when we are dealing with the components, so somewhere you might having a case where you are doing the inheritance. So when it is coming the inheritance, so in the component label, if you parent constructor and like parent component having a constructor. So parent component class constructor things, whatever you're injecting, we can also access in the child component class as well. Similar way, we having the life cycle hooks. So we having some methods which are going to be called whenever you are entering a component there. So we having their methods. So we having the method for ng on init, ng on changes, and others one. So if the parent component class having these methods, so these method, if you are not defining the child class, so these are coming from the inheritance level. So the inheritance is exactly working in the same way as the inheritance work in the TypeScript, as the inheritance work in the other object-oriented programming languages. So concept-wise, the things are similar here. So for this one, what I'm doing, I'm just creating a component. Component I'm creating inside a folder inheritance. And the inheritance folder, I'm writing a component for, let's say, parent. Then inline style sheet, then skip test this way. So dot dash is not working here. It should be the inline style. Then skip the test. So what I'm doing, I'm just creating an inheritance folder, and inside that I'm adding a things for parent. Now I'm adding the things for child. So this folder will contain two components, one for parent, another one for child. This way. So now we can define the routing. So for the routing, we will define the route for the child component here. I'm just looking for child component. And this is I'm using for inheritance this way. This is for we having for inheritance simply. Now let me add a root. So we having here header. For inheritance, we having header. And header label, I'm adding the things for it. So I'm adding the things for inheritance like this way. This is for inheritance. So now here at the child component label, I'm adding the thing. So it is h2, and this is for child component. And this is my parent component. So we having h2, this is for parent component we are having. So now this child component we can inherit from the parent. So whatever I'm doing, this is the constructor, this is the life cycle. So these things I'm going to comment here, and now let me extend. For inheritance, we use the extend keyword similar to the TypeScript. I'm using here, let's say, a parent component this way. So now what are the things we having at the parent component label? They are going to be called with child as well. So this is my parent component. Then similar way I'm adding for ng on it. So parent ng on init, parent constructor this one. If you will check it here, I'm just running ng serve dash o command. So this is for inheritance. I'm getting here child component. Then you can see I'm getting here parent constructor. I'm getting here parent ng on init. Clear? So both are going to be called. But if let's say the same thing, if you're defining in the child component here, I added the constructor. As soon as you will add a constructor, it will be necessary to call the parent class constructor by making the super call. Otherwise, it will give you the error. In the C# and others languages, it is optional, but here it is mandatory. Then I'm using here child we having constructor this one. Then we having child and G on in it. So this way we having. So the thing is actually ng on in it we having in the parent component as well in child. So I can use here the override keyword, method overriding. So now check it out here. So if we look at from the child, we are calling first parent constructor, then child ng on in it. So now ng on in it will not be called from the parent label because it is going to be used now ng on in it all. Make sense? So it is behaving exactly similar to the C#. And always remember one thing, there is no metadata label inheritance. We cannot inherit the metadata from the parent class. Only the things inside the class we can inherit, even we can override from the parent component class. So these are the things you need to know about the inheritance. I hope it is clear to everyone. Then we having the nested component. So what happens here, in many cases, let's say you might be creating a master detail page. So master detail page, you having a master page, and inside that you having a some detail page. So that we can do using the nested component. So in case of nested component, we use input decorator to pass the data from master to nested one. And we use output decorator to pass the information from nested to master. So this is the thing we do about the nested component. So now let me create a things at the command prompt. And here let me define ng C. Then we having here nested. Nested for master inline style, then escape test. So I'm creating a master component. And then we adding here detail component. So now let me define here for routing. So we having here for routing. So it is a nested, and I'm using here, let's say master component this time. Nested. So this way master is coming. So now in case of nested one, as I said, let's say I'm defining something the master component label. I'm defining here company as a string that is undefined. And this value, let's say I'm just going to define here company equal to this, let's say d and d dot matrix. Okay. So this company value, let's say I will access. So I'm adding here h2 as master component. Then I'm calling here app dash details where I can pass that company. So let's say the company I'm passing with the name of my company. So this name can be anything, it's up to you, which I'm using to pass it. Which I'm passing the company. This, so this is my company where I will receive over here. So I'm just using here @input decorator. Then my company as a string undefined. So this with the name of my company, I'm just accessing it here. So what is happening here? If you're looking at the company is defined in this master component, I'm willing to pass to the child one, or I can say the nested one. So the nested one, I'm just going to receive using this my company, and my company is an attribute here. So we having input decorator, through that I can receive. So now at the detail component .html, I can access this my company. So the detail component label, I can access this one. So let's say it is h4, and this is my details component. And here I can mention div. So I'm just using, let's say, past value. Past value. I'm using here, let's say, my company. This way I'm just having. So this is the pass value, DNT. Similar way, if you're willing to pass something from here, there. So I'm using here @output decorator. And here let's say I'm having the MSG. And then this is a event emitter. And the event emitter I'm using, let's say, string, which I want to pass. So it is, let's say, this dot message new event emitter. So I'm going to pass a string value, that's I'm defining this way. If you're passing any object, that object can be used. So what I will do here, this is the event emitter I will pass from here. So this is how it is an event. So I can use message, and let's say it is get data. And to this one, I will pass here a parameter for event. So this get data, where it will be inside the master component. In master component get data, I'm just adding. And then I will receive message for a string this way. So this name can be anything. Don't confuse with the name. Let's say I'm having here a param, so that there is no confusion. And here I can show it through the alert param this way. So this get data, I'm defining, passing the things and showing it over here. Now this message we have defined, and now let's say on a button click, I want to initiate it. So let's say I'm adding here button, that is click, and I'm using here it for click. For click, we have, let's say, send data. So this send data I will define inside this detail component. Here I will define. Then using the message this dot msg, then we having emit. Using the emit, I can pass it hi from nested. This way it will call. If we look at here and click hi from nested coming. So this one is actually I'm emitting from the nested one, and where alert box is written, the alert box is written in the master component. Can you see? This is written at the master component. So this way the mapping is happening here. Is it clear? So apart from the nested component, we having here option of content projection. So content projection actually help us to create the reusable components. So how we can create the reusable component? Reusable components can be created in many cases, where you might having the, let's say, cards, tabs, navbar, models, where the content is almost same, only some label changes are there. So there it will help you to do the things. So this is a simple example where let's say we having a sign up page and the login page. And here we having the same thing. We having the email address, we having the password. So these two things we have to pass. Only we having the label change and we having the text change over there. If the similar thing you're willing to implement, so let's see how we can do it. So in this one we use here ng content. So ng content is a built-in built-in tag we use here, and it support these selectors: HTML tag selector, CSS class selector, ID selector, and the attribute selector. So these many selectors it support. So let me do one thing. I'm adding here a component with the name of, I'm just creating everything the projection. So inside the projection folder, I will create it. So for the projection, let's say I'm just creating a form component. I'm just creating here a main component. So I'm using a form component with inline style, and it is escape dash test this way. So I'm creating here a form component. Similarly, I'm adding a component for main. So we having now in the projection one form and the main. And for the form, let's say I'm just creating a simple thing. I'm just going to have a form tag. Form tag. Where I'm adding a h2. Let's say user login. And then I'm using here, let's say div for username. Then I can have here input type text name. And we can have here, let's say username. Then we having the password. So this is we having for password. Then we having here a button. Input type submit value login. Class is let's say btn, and we can use let's say btn this primary. Okay, so similar thing actually you will do for the user sign up as well. So this is my sign up. So things are here almost same. So we have been here user login and user sign up. So what we can do here, let me first connect it. So I'm connecting with the routing. So with the routing, I'm just connecting here, let's say for projection. And this, let's say main component. And here at the header label, I'm going to put it with projection. With projection, we did it. So inside the main component, actually, I will call this form. So instead of having these three, one in main component, we can simplify. the way of using. So here I'm adding the things for, let's say, projection. In projection, I'm using here app des form. Then I'm using here a h2 user login. Then I'm adding here a this submit button. So this is for login. And this is for sign up. So there should be some similarity. It's not the case. We should have the things exactly different. There should be some similarity. Then I will mention it here. So at the form label, I will mention the ng content. Then mention the selector. Selector is here h2. In this way. Then selector I'm using here btn class. btn class here. So this way we just mention it. So now we have only one thing. So button, I'm selecting here this btn css class. This having the similarity for h2. So automatically this content is going to be served when you will try to get the things here. So ng serve dash o. In the projection one, you can see heading is coming, but okay, CSS class should be there. Now button also coming. Can you see? So now the thing is here, a view child. In the same case, let's say sometime it happens, you're going to access the detail component methods. So in case of detail component method, we can use the view child decorator. So with the help of view child decorator, we can create the instance of the child component, or you can say the detail component. And after that, the detail component, this child component method we can access. So this is the child component method I'm getting here. Simply. So this is hello. Now this hello I'm mentioning here. Like this way. So this hello I'm calling. So this sample I'm not showing you here because it is already written over there. You have to just understood. Now the important part is component life cycle hooks. How they work. So component life cycle hooks are managed by the Angular itself. And whenever we are rendering a component, say component is going to call all these methods one by one. And hooks are always executed in this given order, where it first execute constructor, then ng on changes, then ng on init, then ng do check. So these are the methods it is going to call here. So mainly these component hooks are going to be divided into two parts. One is specific to a component where we have been constructor, where we have been ng on init and ng on destroy. So these three are majorly used hooks here. So when it is coming to the constructor, so constructor used to initialize the default value to a class members. When it is coming to the ng on it, so ng on it we use in that case whenever we are willing to render something from the backend API. So we having the backend API So from the backend API, we are willing to load the things. So there, ng on init will help us. Then we having ng on destroy. So ng on destroy will help you whenever we are going to unload something. So what are the things we are getting? That things we are going to unload. So there ng on destroy will help us simply. When it is coming to the ng on changes will work whenever you having a input parameter. As we did yesterday, when we pass the data from master component to nested one, we use input decorator. If you don't have the input decorator, then this hook will not be called. Then we having here ng do check. So ng do check is going to be called every time you are doing any change at the component UI. So by default, Angular behind the scene use a change detection technique, CD. So that CD, if you're willing to change, if you're willing to customize, so there ng do check can be used. And this is a very rare case where we do this one. Because what are the change detection mechanism used by the Angular, we never change. So this is for customization of that thing. So these hooks are going to use for a single component. But if you are having a, let's say, the nested component, so for the nested component, we having the ng after content in it. So these two hooks are used for the content projection. If you're having a content projection, in that case, we having the ng after content in it and ng after content check. So these are going to be used there. Then we having a ng after unit and ng after view check. So these two are going to be used in view child. If you having the view child, then these two are going to be used. If you don't have the view child, then these two are not going to be used. So you have to understand here, some hooks are going to be executed automatically, but some are not. They only work when we having the content projection, when we having the view child things. If you don't have them, then these hooks are not going to be used over there. So to have them, let me add the things. App routing module and shared folder. Where I'm having here parent hooks. Then we having inline style. Now let me create it inside the hooks component. Then you skip the test case. Inline style, skip test, and parent hooks. Similarly, I can mention here for child hooks. So what we can do here, we can add here a hooks now. So I'm adding the things for the hooks. In hooks also I'm using, let's say, parent hooks component. Okay. Now let me add a link for the hooks. So I'm adding the link for the hooks like this way. So now how we can access a localhost 4200 hooks. And now let's say hook order of execution we can check at the console level. So this is my constructor. So this is the things we having for constructor. So which we can use to initialize something, even we are doing it from day one. So let's say this is the name as a string. So this name is giving the error because value we have not initialized. But if the here inside it I will assign the value, that error will disappear. Working fine. Now in case of ng on init, we having something to read from the API. So let's say we having a users. I'm getting here some data. Let's say by default is here undefined. So what I can do here, I can read the data over here. So we having a URL we having here JSON placeholder user, even we having a another one dummy JSON. So this is the online URL we can use to get the products, we can use to get the users here. So this way we can get dummyjson.com/user. So these user detail we can read there. So from the dummy JSON we can read the things like this way. So now here in case of Angular we having the HTTP client. So using the HTTP client we can read the things. So for HTTP client, let me import a module HTTP client module. HTTP client module. So now let me import it. Common HTTP. So it is HTTP client module. So this way we can import HTTP client module. Now HTTP I can inject here. At the constructor label, I can inject the client HTTP client, not module, only HTTP client. This way. So by using the HTTP client, we can access this dot client, then get the URL. We having here subscribe method, where I will get a response. So the response I can check here if response dot is response not equal to null. So that data we can bind to the user. This dot users equal to response this way. So when we are doing it, I can use let's say HTTP response and we'll get it let's say any as a user. Response.body. This we can mention. That is something I'm going to load from the database. That's I'm writing the code. Makes sense? Then if you're willing to use here ng do check. Sanji do check I can mention here as it is on do. It is do check. Also do check is going to be called every time whenever you're doing the change, but it is only used whenever I'm just going to modify the Angular built-in change detection. If it is not, it's not required. So this is ng on init. If you want to console the things, we can console the thing here response dot body. Let's say this dot user. So this dot users I can do here. This is here. Subscribe we having here. This way subscription we can decide here. Then we having here on destroy. So we having here on destroy. So on destroy. So whatever the subscription we having, let's say subscription. I think they changed something. So then we have been unsubscribe. Okay, this way. So whatever thing we are subscribing here, the same thing we can unsubscribe. So these are the mainly used hooks we having there. Here we don't have, this ng on changes. If you will try to use it, it will not work. I can show you on changes. So if let's say you are willing to use here ng on changes, so it will not work. Clear? And now let's see the case here. Hooks. So I'm getting here ng do check. So where are others? Okay, now it's working fine. If you look at here, look this way. It is calling first constructor, then on init, do check, do check, do check. Clear? Go here. It is calling ng on destroy. So it is not calling the on changes. Am I right? So on changes, it is not calling. So data is coming actually directly. We don't have here response and body. Okay. So if response not equal to null, so it is not a actually HTTP response. It is returning here any this way. So data we are getting like this way. So now you will get the things as expected. Hooks. So I'm getting users. Clear? This is the way the hooks can be understood. So before showing the output here, it is calling the do check, and do check, because every time there is a change is happening, it is calling the do check method. Make sense? Now at the child label, this is my child hooks. So we can add here, let's say CLG, that is for child constructor. This is again for child and G on init. So do check we need to mention over here, not there. So do check. It is a child label. Not do check actually on changes. It should be on changes. Okay. On changes. Child and G on changes. And here I can use @ input. Input decorator. Then let's say name I will take. So my name I'm taking. So here at the parent hooks label, I can access it. So this is my parent hooks. Then I can use here app dash child hooks. And then I'm using here my name equal to name. Clear? Now see it. So it is coming here. Now it is calling the child ng on changes, child ng on in it. Then do check are coming from the parent one. Clear? So now at the child label, the ng on changes, it's start calling. Even the child ng on it is also calling, and the parent ng on it also it is calling. So this is the way how the hooks can really help us for doing such things. So what happens in Angular? In Angular, we having the John.js library that Angular use for digesting the changes. What are the changes we are doing? So in Angular, we having the ng John service. So this ng John service internally use the John.js to do the changes. So this is the structure we having a complex component, a complex page where we having the many component. We having the nested component also there. So these are the things we having there. So Angular having the two change detection strategy, default and the on push. So by default, Angular use the default strategy where it check for the changes every time. But in case of on push, it check for the changes only once. So these are the change detection strategy Angular use. So in a typically we never change these strategy until we are not creating our own the library, until we are not creating our own way to do the things. So this one you should know from the perspective of interview. That's I'm teaching you here. But usually the on push and the default strategy will never change over there. So these are the some Angular advanced things that everyone must know whenever you are going for the interview over there. I hope it is clear to everyone. So let's proceed further to create a form in Angular. So forms are the important part of a web application, especially whenever you're taking the input from the end user. We always create the form. So we having the two types of form here, the template driven and the model driven form. Then use a template driven form, everything we design at the UI. And these are the building blocks of a form. The building block of a form are form group, form control, form array, and validations. So these many are the building blocks of a form. And these are the form control state we having: pristine, untouched, touch, dirty, invalid, and invalid. So initially when you render a form and its control, it will be in pristine stage. It will be in untouched state. If you having the validation, then you will have either invalid, you will have either valid state. So obviously if you have being validation, it will be invalid. Now let's say you did focus inside the text box and you came out. So what you did it, you touch it. So it will move from untouched to touch. But still you have not entered any character, any value. So it is still in touch state. Now you have entered a character, it will move from pristine to dirty because you change the value. So these two stages cannot go back. Means dirty to pristine, we cannot go back. Touch to untouched, we cannot go back. But in case of valid and invalid, we can go back and we can proceed further this way. So this is about valid, this is about the invalid. The things are working simply. So this is the way how the Angular form and the form control states are working here. Simply. So this is the state transition: untouched to touch, pristine to dirty, invalid to valid, and valid to invalid. So when we create the template driven form, so template driven form we design at the UI label. And these are the Angular form validation we do. Template driven validation, model driven validation. So these are the validation we do here. So we having the required min length, max length, pattern, email, min and max. So these are the things for the validation here. In model driven, we design the things at the component class level, and based upon that, we do the things. So let's see how we can do the model driven and template driven form. So for creating the form, let me add here a console. So I'm creating here ngc component, that is template form, this way. So I'm creating here a template form. Sorry, it's added into the hooks. So we should not add inside the hooks. Let me delete it. And whenever you will delete, you have to delete from app module also, like this way. So now let me add here the folder for the forms. So template forms, and we having the reactive forms. So reactive forms are model form. So we added two types of form, template form and the reactive forms. So for reactive forms, I'm using here the reactive form module, this way. So reactive forms module we added here to work with the reactive one. Now for the routing, let me add the things for routing here. So this is now form. This is now reactive forms. So this is a template form component. Then we having the reactive form component, template and reactive. So form, this here template form, then reactive form. So it is reactive form, this way. So template form and reactive form. So both are here are opening. Okay. So let us start with the template form. So in case of templated form, I can add h2, that is for templated form, then horizontal line. Now I'm adding here a model. So I'm adding a folder for models. Inside models, I'm adding a file, a class file, user.ts. So I'm adding here a class for user. Now let me define the name as a string, then we having undefined. Then I'm defining here for, let's say, email as a string, then we having undefined. Then we having the password, a string undefined. Then we having confirm password, a string undefined. Contact string undefined. So name, email, password, confirm password, contact. Then we having the username. We having the username. Now let me define export this way. Now I can create the component here. User colon user. Now let me initialize the thing. This dot user equal to new user. So should we go ahead to create the form? So here we can create the form like this way. Form. Then I can define the form reference name. ng form. Then I can add a div for username and password. So I can use one thing here, vs5 dash we having the form for input text this way. So it's added for the input text where we having the name. So placeholder we can leave. Then I can mention the name this way. So name is fine, ID I can skip, help ID I can skip here. Placeholder also I can skip. And here in place of small I'm using here span. Then we having text dash danger, text dash danger. Here we can mention the error message. Please enter name this way. And here I can hide the things. So it is here hidden. And here I can check for it. Not equal to name dot. I can look for. Okay, hash name we have not mentioned. So define hash name. It would be here for ng model. Then ng model. So user dot we having for name. Now using this hash name, I can check for the error. It is having the error for, let's say, required. So I can make it required here. Required. If it is having the error, so please enter name this way. Now we can have a bootstrap 5 input button. So this is for, let's say, register. So this one is fine here. I can add a div where can I take class margin bottom 3 and this way I can use it. If you will look for the template form, it will come like this way. So error message are coming here by default. Can you see? But error message should come when I'm clicking on the button or I'm interacting with the text box. So that time only the error message should come here. So in that case, I can add a condition. I'm adding here a condition for. So what are the state we having? So I can check for the state is, let's say, touch. If you touch the state or you have submitted the form. So we having form dot submitted. Either you have submitted the form, either you have touched the text box. So that time show the error message. If we will see now, it will should work fine here. Okay, one thing I need to mention here. Actually, I can do one thing. I can wrap it in a div where I can add a class for, let's say, danger, and here I can add the condition a dash ng if this way, and where I can check whether it is having the error note as error or not here. So here I'm just checking the things like this way. So now it should work fine. I think for submit, I need to just mention here ng submit, ng submit, where we having the save data. So when you will submit it, let receive the data over here. So save data, I will receive here. So here I will receive the form using ng form. And here I will check if form is valid. Then console the value. So value would be, let's say, this dot user. I can console. So here let me pass the parameter this way. Only for the form submission, the issue is there. So first of all, let's understand here how it is changing the state. Can you see the state here for this input control? There is an input control state here. Let me reload it. So right now it is in untouched state and pristine state and invalid. Now let me touch, came out. So now it is become touch, but it's still pristine. Enter value. Now it is valid. Even it is dirty also here. So this way the things are working for the state. So now similar to the name, we can add the another text boxes as well. Okay, so now I can use the same thing for others also. So exactly as I did for name, I can copy it for email. I can copy it for password, confirm password, and the contact. So this is for email. It is coming. So everywhere it is email. Password. And then we having here confirm password. confirm password. Then we having for contact. And contact I'm making, let's say, optional. So I don't need to mention anything here. Confirm password. So if you will see, input type submit, value register. Click, all the RMS are coming. Clear? For email, we can add the more than one error messages. Let's say email also. And for email, I can add another error message. In a span, I can add an error message for email. Email. Please enter correct email. This way. So this is for email. Same way we can, so click, enter. Correct email it is asking. Clear? If you will enter everything, it will make the things valid and submit the things there. So I'm adding, let's say, Mohan @gmail.com, password 1234, 1234, then contact in this way. Register, it is coming. So this way it is coming fine. So I hope it is clear to everyone to create the form in Angular. Am I right? So the widely used style is not the actually templated one. We use the widely used style here as a model driven form, or you can say the reactive form. So same thing, if let's say I'm going to create for the reactive form, how it can be done. So now let me complete that thing here. So I'm adding here, this is my reactive form. In reactive form, I create the form, a user form this way. That is form group. Now let me create private form builder. So here this form I can initialize using two style. Let's say this dot user form equal to, it is new form group this way. Then initialize the things, name the new form control, then control value empty. I'm using here validators dot required. Similar way we having for username. Let's say for email. So validators dot email. This way we can create the form here. So what are the validation we just applying at the UI label? We just going to apply here at the component class label. Or if you're looking for a more simplified syntax, so for the more simplified syntax, we having the form builder. So let me use this dot user form equal to, it is form builder. The form builder group. So this one is also this dot form builder. In group, I can define the things for name. Then empty value. Then we having validators dot required. Then we having for email password, confirm password, and contact. So this is for email. So for email, I can define an array for multiple validation. So validators dot email. Then we having password. And then we having confirm password. So for confirm password, it is required, and it is for contact. I can mention here regular expression contact. So we having here pattern. So for pattern, I can define a regular expression as per the Indian mobile number. So as per the Indian mobile number, we can have the regular expression this way. So what are the things we define at the UI level? We have defined the things over here. So what are the things we did last time at the UI? Now we are doing in the component class. So this here, let's say reactive forms. Now at the UI level, exactly similar to the previous case, we will define the things. So now UI I can use from here, but few changes we need to do here. So we having the save data. In save data, I will check for this dot user form dot valid. Then console log this dot user form dot value. This is a value I will get here. We don't need to pass anything here because already we having here this time user form. So same user form I'm using here. And here we don't use ng model, and this one, it is not required. It will be now replaced by the form control. So what is the form control name? It is name. You have to define the form group as we define there, form group for user form. So same form group we mention over here. And this is form control name. And for the error messages, we will use this one. User form dot controls. For controls, we having the name, then we having the errors. If there are error, then do check whether the form is submitted, and do check whether the form we just touch. If it is, then check for the errors in this one. show the error message. This is a fixing for this name for the reactive form. If we will go, working fine. Exactly same changes we have to do for others also. So this one replace y form control name. Form control name is email. So everywhere should be email. In copy paste, we have not changed this one, but this one also be changed. Okay. This is a change I'm doing for the more template one to make it perfect. So in this reactive form, just change the code this way. So now let me fix for email. So this is we having 4 errors. Required email. So control is password here. Form control name equal to password. Password. Form control name we having confirm password. And this one is 4 errors. Okay. Errors. Errors for required like this way. Errors pattern. Please enter correct contact this way. So this way we having the things like this way. So only the difference you will find out here. Now we are using the controls, then errors. Error message are there. So this is for showing and hiding the error messages. We are doing it. So if you're willing to create a custom validation, for custom validation, we can create a function here. So that function I can use to do this one. Let's say compare validator, where I've received the other control name, other control name I will get as a string. Okay. Now let me get here this control. Let's say current control, that is form control here, form control. Then we having the other control, that is also form control here. And finally return a function where I will pass the control value. That's a form control. It will let us know the things. Now here I will check if control does not have its parent, then return null. Else do check for the first control. So I'm just using here this control equal to the control we are getting inside this function. And then for other control, I will get the other one, that is other control equal to this control dot parent, and then get it by its name. So parent is actually form here. So using the form, I'm getting it. As we do in jQuery, using the parent, we can figure out. Now let me subscribe for the control changes. So this other control value changes, we are subscribing. If change is happening, so for that change, I will update the control validity. This control update value and validity this way. Then I'm using here compare. For compare, I'm using here other control value not equal to this control value. If it's not matching, I can mention here a custom one. I'm returning a custom object. Match value true. Else return null. This way. So this is simple. This is a function I'm writing here to compare the value. And here I can call it. So ultimately we have to call it. So here I have to call it pass the field which we want to compare, password, this way. Now here at the UI label, I will check for this one. So I will check here for, let's say, confirm password. And in arrays, we having this match value. So confirm password does not match. Clear? Only one condition also we need to add here. Make sure we don't have the required error message here. So we are not having the required error message. Okay, this way it is working fine for the compare password also. So the reactive forms validation also we have done. Even we created the custom one also.